There are many problems with sources, mostly to do with being able to keep sources confidential. So in many countries around the world we have journalistic codes of ethics that demand that journalists protect their anonymous sources, their confidential sources. And that's written into law in many countries, particularly Western developed contexts. But what we've seen with the age of surveillance and data interception, data retention, the requirement that companies that are like social platforms and internet intermediaries are required to keep data for long periods of time and potentially to hand that data over. We've also seen laws around the world used to undercut those protections, laws around national security and anti-terrorism that are used to justify either surveillance or the handover of material or the interception of materials. So I worked on a very big study for UNESCO which looked at the legal support and frameworks for protecting sources in 121 countries over the period of about a decade. It examined the data. We made a heap of recommendations, and I'm talking about them here at the International Journalism Festival. And those recommendations included the need for states, for governments, to strengthen their laws where they exist, to make sure that the protections that we have also apply to your mobile phone, your laptop, your hard drive, so that you aren't forced to hand over stored data, and that your communications, for example, with your source are protected. Not just the published journalism and the source's identity, but the actual communications. This is an interesting question. You know, we've never seen such big data dumps. We've never, until recently. So the power of technology to actually allow masses of information to come into the public domain in the interests of protecting the right to access information in the public interest. But at the same time, you have what we call a chilling effect, where people, sources and whistleblowers are less secure about making contact with a journalist than they previously were. So what we are finding is that sophisticated leakers, sophisticated whistleblowers who understand the threats and understand how to navigate them, you know, recognising that they must use a secure platform to deliver information that is, you know, heavily encrypted, possibly using a laptop that's never been connected to the internet for various processes. So I think we're seeing an increased awareness at a very high level of sophisticated whistleblower, but for the vast majority of journalism that's based on confidential sources, the people don't have the skills necessary to actually deliver the information in a secure way if it's based around data, for example. So journalists are having to go back to what we call pre-digital basics. They're having to meet in a car park, like the Woodward and Bernstein story and All the President's Men, a famous journalism story. And they're doing things in ways to avoid detection. So taking a back road, driving long distances to make contact with people. So there's what we call a juxtaposition here. There's competing elements around protection that journalists must take into account.